Okay, so this webinar is on its way. So we just heard, I do apologize, we had our guest speaker. We just heard that she is ill this evening. So hopefully I've talked to her and Joe has talked to her. So hopefully we can share that information. And what I will do for everyone that is signed up for this webinar, when Janet is feeling better, I will go ahead and I will do a recording, with Janet, and if we need to ask Joe too, we will do a separate recording with her. She is our guest speaker that has been living many generations as a multi-generational family member, and we'll have Joe talk about that when we get to that portion. So that's what I will do. I will connect with Janet. We will create a video, and everyone that is signed up for this webinar, we will send you that recording so that you won't miss anything that we were going to share tonight. So I do apologize, but I promise you that we will get you that information so that you can hear directly from Janet. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started, and we are ready to go. So you are in the right place if you are here for navigating the 2024 top trends in senior care. My name is Pam Dunwald. I am one of your nurse advocates from Your Nurse Advocate Consulting, and I'm super happy to have Joe Kress here. He's the owner and broker of Kress Real Estate Solutions, and he's going to talk about some of the logistics in that when we get into multi-generational living. So very glad you're here. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm kind of solo. I so apologize. I've tried so hard to make this go very well. My mother-in-law passed away just Monday, very unexpectedly, due to an injury and a fall. And so it's been kind of a crazy week. So I will promise you that we will bring you everything that we promised to share. So let's go ahead and dig in. So one of the things we're going to talk about is why is the senior care trends important? And one of the reasons is that a lot of this came out from COVID, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But by the year 2030, every single baby boomer is going to be 65 years of age or older. And what's that going to do to nursing homes, assisted livings? The pandemic kind of jaded a lot of people with going into nursing homes and now since the pandemic, a lot of caregivers, we had, the great resignation, a lot of nurses and caregivers are leaving, care. And so what is that going to do to the landscape of providing care? And so one of the things is now we're seeing that shift into aging in place and also multi-generational living. We're going to talk a little bit more about the trends, but this webinar is really important to kind of be able to look into the future a little bit and how it impacts your family. So whenever you see, you're going to see a little, when we get to the first slide, I will point that out. You're going to see a little notebook that's on the slide. And when you see the notebook, that means that that's pertaining to the page in your workbook, that if you're following along with the workbook. So I tried to do that so that you knew that, okay, this pertains or this is what's in the workbook that I need to maybe make a note on. So just an overview of today's discussion is, we're talking about the top three trends in senior care for 2024 is mental health concerns, predominantly depression and anxiety. And those are related to loneliness and isolation. And that a big portion of that was born out of the pandemic. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit. Second one is multi-generational living. We're looking at families, combining households. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons. We're going to talk about, the benefits and maybe some of the challenges. And the third trend that we're going to talk about is aging in place. And aging in place is becoming very popular, but aging in place comes with its own challenges. So we're going to talk about that as well. So our webinar promise to you is we understand the responsibility that comes with caring for seniors, and we recognize, the changing landscape of senior care. And so with the compassion, is really at the heart of what we want to bring to you. And so We just want to make sure that we've tailored this webinar to both enlighten you, so share information, empower you, give you the knowledge to be able to take action, and then support you through this complex terrain of senior care. So that is our promise that we want to accomplish with this webinar this evening. So I'm just going to mention, what are we? What is Your Nurse Advocates Consulting? We are independent patient advocates. And what is an independent patient advocate? Well, we happen to be nurses, so we feel that we have a kind of an extra layer of benefits as an advocate, but you don't have to be a nurse to be a patient advocate. There are sometimes social workers, therapists, pharmacists, even lay people that have experience in navigating challenges with the healthcare system can become an advocate. And so my partner Linda and I, we decided to become independent patient advocates, take a board certification exam, and we wanted to have that board certification to help with the credibility to go along with our combined total of 80 plus years in nursing. So, but a health advocate, also known as a patient advocate or navigator, is someone who provides personalized assistance and guidance to individuals or families navigating the complexities of the healthcare system. So a lot of times we refer to maybe as like a concierge of services. A lot of what we do is put plans in place, provide resources, and a lot of education. And later on, I'll give you a few examples of the kind of things that we do to support people. So what do we do best? We help aging parents go from feeling overwhelmed and frustrated with the healthcare system, as well as giving peace of mind and confidence to their adult children that their aging loved one is getting the best care possible while the family keeps their sanity. If you are caring for an aging adult, I mean, kudos to you and your family. We know, both Linda and I are caring for aging parents. I just lost my mother-in-law. She was just turned 90 years old this month, and we just celebrated her 90th birthday, and she took a fall down the stairs at church. So you just never know. And so I still have my mom, and Linda has both of her parents that are in their 90s. So we not only, have a lot of experience in senior care, we're also in the trenches with you, taking care of aging loved ones. So a little bit about how we are qualified, and we talked briefly, so I'm not going to, go over all that again. But again, we've both been RNs for over 40 years, just tons and tons of experience. One of our superpowers that we've learned as nurses to be empathy. So we can put ourselves in your shoes because we've walked your walk, and it's very easy. We've helped hundreds of families throughout our careers. And so along with that, our specialty is problem solving. That's what we do best. And our toolbox is our resources. And so a lot of times what we can do is, can family members do this on their own? Absolutely. But we can, help save a lot of time and a lot of research that you're going to put in. And so we can kind of share some responsibility with you and make your journey of caring for an aging loved one a little easier and allow you to be the son, the daughter, the grandchild, instead of being, that primary caregiver. So here's our slide. When you see this notebook, that's going to mean that the slide that we're on is pertaining to a page in your workbook so that you can follow along, take notes. We're going to have questions to try and have the information that we're sharing tonight be able to be pertinent to you and be able to apply that to your family. So those are the kind of the areas in your notebook or your workbook that you can jot down things that we're talking about that might pertain to your family to help you see or, plan for that future and see what kind of items you as a family may need to consider as you care for an aging loved one. Okay. So how did these trends come about? So let's look back. So in March 11th, 2020, that's when the pandemic officially started. And as a nurse, I had a little, being an old nurse, so to speak, I had a little bit of this experience before. As a new nurse in the early 80s, AIDS had just come out. So, we were isolating patients. We had nurses walk off the floor, refuse to care for AIDS patients because they didn't know how it was transmitted. They didn't know how to get it. And it affected at that time they did know that AIDS was predominantly affecting certain kinds of groups of people. And so with the pandemic now, with COVID, everybody, regardless of your lifestyle choices, everybody had the risk of contracting COVID. And so it made it a little bit more global and a little bit more scary. But yes, back in the early 80s, we went through something very similar, but it didn't get to the pandemic level. So when the pandemic started, the first thing that happened is access to healthcare crashed. I remember my mother-in-law, when we first found out that she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I found a lump under her chin. And I said, Mom, we really need to go get this checked out. And this was during the pandemic. So they did make the appointment. She was symptom free. So we went in with our mask, and the doctor, the nurse practitioner who we were seeing, came in full gear, PAPR, the hood, the breathing, the PAPR with the air exchange machine on her back, on her, around her waist, and, full thing. And she was, she was afraid to come near. She was afraid to touch her. And I said, she's got this lump on there, and she didn't even touch her. She didn't even feel it. And I said, well, can we get an ultrasound? We have to do something. We're here. So they did an ultrasound, and the radiologist thought it was a little suspicious. And he said, we can do a biopsy right now. And she says, yes, I don't know when I'll be able to get in. Let's do it. So, but I'm just trying to paint the picture of, what that looked like. And I'm sure, some of you have experienced. So that was the beginning. So now it was very hard for people to access healthcare. And so when I was working in the hospital still at that time, so then we've got nursing homes isolating residents. So if they're coming from the hospital, we had to do a COVID test before they went into the nursing home. And once they went in the nursing home, even if their COVID test was negative, they had to isolate in their room for 14 days. They had to eat in their room. They had to do everything in their room. And they had no access except when if they put their call light on, or someone brought them a meal tray, or someone came in to check on them or give them their medications. But they were in their room for 2 weeks. We had our social workers were keeping in contact with all these nursing homes. What are you doing to try and connect them with their families? Now, during nice weather in some areas of the country, they set up like areas with picnic tables really spread out outside so family members could come outside. But, you're in a Wisconsin winter, that's not happening. We're not, our nursing homes here in Wisconsin, we're not having people during the winter time see their family members outside. So the best that they were doing is they were looking through a glass window saying, hi, Mom, hi, Dad, hi, Grandma, hi, Grandpa, and trying to, connect through a window that was closed. So as time went on, this led to now these seniors living in nursing homes and assisted livings, when they weren't allowing any visitors, these people were completely shut off from their families. They had absolutely no contact except what they could do over the phone. And some of them with dementia or cognitively impaired, maybe they weren't able to have a conversation on the telephone. So they really were not in contact. So now 3 years later, now we're getting into seeing all the effects. We have the great resignation of nurses and healthcare workers. So now, beds, there are beds available at nursing homes. There are beds available at assisted livings, but oftentimes they close those beds and they say, we don't have any openings because they don't have the staff. They don't have the staff to care for people. So, people are looking for other options. And now in 2030, when every baby boomer is 65 years or older, we're already having a shortage now. And if, our healthcare system doesn't come up with creative ways to try and support all of our seniors, in the next, 10 years, what are we going to do? And so people, talk to their friends. They knew people in nursing homes, and people decided, well, I don't want to live that way, and I'm not knocking, I don't want to say I'm knocking nursing homes. I'm not. There are times with nursing homes and assisted livings, that is where, and assisted livings, people go there by choice. It's a great community. There's a lot of benefits. And in a nursing home, sometimes there's no other option because they need that so much, care, that there's no other option but to go to a nursing home. And all I'm trying to say is, as we move on, we may see more shortages in beds that are available. And so what are we going to do? And so this is some of the challenges between now and 2030 that we're going to have. And as family members, we have to start thinking, well, what if it takes 3 months to get mom or dad or grandma or grandpa into a nursing home? Maybe is there, how long is the waiting list? What do we do in the interim? What do we do, in the meantime? And so hopefully you're going to gain some insights and some options. Also, us as a nurse advocacy, that's our job, is to come alongside you and try and put plans in place and look at what we can do to help you support other options and other plans if the plan that you want is really just not available at that time. So here's another notebook. So this means that this slide too also is going to correlate with your workbook. So how might these trends affect you? What are the current situations you're facing with your own family, that might trigger, a consideration for one of these three trends? So think about that. So maybe jot some notes in your workbook, in the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years, depending on the situation with you and your family. Where do you see, areas, where do you see some of these things that might come into play? Has your aging loved one expressed an interest in aging in place, or are wondering if they can live with you? As an aging adult, have you offered them to come live with you? Have you thought about that? And we'll talk more about that when we get into aging in place and multi-generational living. Just trying to start to get you to think about what other options, that you may consider as a family if you could not go to a nursing home or an assisted living. And so is your aging loved one now experiencing any concern for isolation and loneliness? And we're gonna spell that out a little bit with some symptoms and some things to look for, but just to try and get, jot down some things that might come to mind. So the trend number one is mental health issues, most predominantly depression and anxiety. So the depression and anxiety, a lot of it is related to isolation and loneliness. Isolation and loneliness can actually be two different things. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we're going to talk about some risk factors for both isolation and loneliness. So some of the risk factors, as we look at a lot of the different, I'm just trying to just pull up my notes here. So I apologize. I'm just trying to navigate this bar here. So some of the when we're looking at isolation versus loneliness, studies have found where, we're looking at high blood pressure, could be cause heart disease, obesity, weakened immune function, anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, dementia. And so think about all the ways that isolation and loneliness can really affect your body. So some of the things that could be risk factors, if you live alone, you can't leave your home. So that puts you at risk for loneliness and both loneliness and isolation. If you've had a major loss of life or you've lost your spouse, you may feel loneliness. Maybe you've just retired and you haven't found anything to do or a purpose. That also could lead to loneliness. Are you struggling with money? Are you struggling, like we said, with retirement? Are you a caregiver? A caregiver can have isolation. As a caregiver, you need to be careful. If you're spending all of your time caring for an aging loved one, you're now isolated. So you need to look at those things to make sure that you're caring for yourself. If you live in a rural area and your aging loved one no longer can drive, how are they getting to places where they can, be with other people and do other activities? Do they maybe live in an urban, maybe an unsafe neighborhood? So that might cause them to be isolated. Hearing, if they have a hearing loss, you could have a room full of family members having a great conversation, and if they can't hear you, they can't participate in the conversation, so they're isolated, from the family. If you experience age or racial, ethnic, or sexual orientation differences, that could lead to isolation and a feeling of loneliness. And if you language barriers, if you're speech impaired, if you're, all of these things can lead to that. And one of the things with aging adults, they are what I want to say, they have, just like a baby has developmental milestones, and we all know, by when they should be rolling over, when they should be, sitting up, and when they say their first words. Our seniors, our elderly, have the same type of developmental milestones. And for our aging adults at 65 or older, one of those milestones is, isolation versus purpose. So if they don't have a purpose, and if they're not finding productive ways to lead their life, then that can lead to isolation and loneliness. So that means that they would not be successful in reaching that milestone, just like a toddler, reaching that milestone of walking. So there are those milestones that have to be reached by our aging adults as well. So let me go back to this and move this, and I apologize here for all these different things here. And Joe, are you still seeing, do you see the loneliness and isolation slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so here again is the notebook. So these are some things that we can do to look at preventing isolation and loneliness. So some of these you might want to jot down if it might serve a purpose for your family. Your aging loved ones better than anyone else. So some of these might not pertain to you, but some of them may. So let's look at senior centers. So if you have a senior center in your area, that's a great way. If you live in an area where they have senior transportation, a lot of the transportation could accommodate wheelchairs. The biggest resource that I share with everyone is an aging and disability resource center, or ADRC. That's what we call them in Wisconsin. Every state in the United States has a county government agency that houses or cares for the aging. So, excuse me. Grab some water here. So every county has a government agency that supports our seniors, and they are they house all the resources in your area. So they can tell you what nursing homes are in the area. They can tell you what assisted living. They could talk to you about Meals on Wheels. They could let you know about senior transportation. So that's always the first resource that we give everyone, is their county agency on aging, or their senior center. So senior centers themselves are a place where seniors can go, and there's coordinated activities, whether it's cards, bingo, bring in music. It's a place where seniors can go and gather, just like the Boys and Girls Club, but it's for seniors. And so if you have one in your area, and they have special things, like we said, they can do Bible studies. They have groups of gentlemen. They just, talk sports. And so there's lots of things. And again, like we said, cards, games, chess. Another way to help prevent loneliness and isolation would be to learn a new skill, like lifelong learning skills, or learn a new hobby. Maybe they're wanting to learn to crochet or knit, or maybe even it's a technology. It's an opportunity to learn how to use a tablet or a computer, or learn how to use a smartphone. So you can share pictures, on Facebook with other families. A lot of families have a family Facebook page. We we do as well. So that's where our family shares things. And so we always know what's going on with the family. Maybe take a cooking class. And we talked about knitting, crocheting, or some other skill, basket weaving, whatever that might be. Another great resource, Catholic Charities. If you have a Catholic Charities in your area, please look them up because they have a wonderful array of activities and services to support both the aging senior, a lot of volunteer opportunities, and also a lot of opportunities to support the caregivers. So that's one great organization that I've learned about, and they are all over the country. So volunteering. So this will help them with that milestone of living out their life, their golden years with a purpose. So maybe they want to help out with the community, read to children at school. I know we have a client that her mom, she works at the county meal site for Meals on Wheels, or maybe at the food pantry, or maybe serve food at a soup kitchen or something like that. So different ways to volunteer depending on, what they like. What did a lot of things to do is look at what they did for their living, look at what their career was, look at what they're good at, what their skill set is, and then try and find maybe a volunteer opportunity that may coincide, or they have a lifelong skills that they've learned through their life. Maybe that's something that they like at a YMCA, they'd be willing to teach a class, maybe if they play guitar, maybe, or play piano, they could give, lessons. So lots of things that they could do. So think about and write down on your workbook some of the things that might pertain to your family that your aging loved one, might have an opportunity to give them that purpose. I talked to one of the assisted livings in our area, in the La Crosse area here in Wisconsin. At the assisted living, they have a pen pal program, and it's really great. They have kids at school write to the seniors at the assisted living. They write back, and twice a year they bring everybody together and have a little party at the assisted living. That's a really great idea. So if you don't have anything like that in community, maybe reach out to your school and see if they would be willing. You could maybe try and start to facilitate something like that. But that, and think about it, our seniors, our aging adults, that's what they do. That's what they did. They wrote letters, and a lot of them don't text, and they don't use smartphones. My mother-in-law, she had a smartphone. She didn't know how to use it except how to call. She has no internet in her home, no computer. My mom has no internet, no computer in her home. And I know there are a lot of aging adults that do, but again, like we talked before, maybe that's something that they can, would like to learn. So pen pals, neighborhood walking club, get the gals, maybe they could walk in the morning together, or, lunch club. My mother-in-law, that was another great thing that she loved to do. All her friends and her sisters-in-laws that had lost their spouses, it came down to this group of 6 women, and once a month they would go out to lunch, and they just really loved that. And they'd go to different places in the area. A gardening club. If if your aging loved one, if they were very good at gardening, that's a great skill to be able to pass on. And that's very trendy now. A lot of people are, even in urban areas, they're having raised gardens, and that's becoming very popular to grow your own food. So that might be an area where they could share their expertise. Craft club. I know at our church on Thursdays they have quilting club. Everybody brings their sewing machine and just works on what they want to work on. And if you've never quilted before, you've got a room full of people that are ready to help you learn. So dance club, like I know in our area, they have a country music kind of a dance club, and I think it's called Country Club, and they follow certain bands at different places, and there's always dances. And so that's real popular for people that can do that. One of the things that we can also help with reducing loneliness and isolation is scheduled check-in calls. I am a firm believer in scheduled check-in calls. And why I like this too is this is something that out-of-town relatives can do, and it can help them feel that they're taking an active participation in, helping out with that aging loved one. And so everyone could take a turn. My sister-in-law, my mother-in-law that just passed, my sister-in-law's in South Carolina, we're in Wisconsin. After my father-in-law passed away, she lost her, my mother-in-law lost her husband and then her mother, who lived on the same property with them in a second home. She lost them both within a month. And it was devastating for her. That was just because she was leaning on her mom when she lost, her husband. And then her mom died a month after her husband. And so right then my sister-in-law started calling her every day. She called her every day at 9:30 at night. And when the news came on, excuse me. I'm sorry, I've been talking a lot this week and meeting with a lot of people. I apologize. She calls her every night, 9:30 when the news comes on, she says, "Good night, mom. It's time to go to bed," and she'd go up and she'd go to bed. So phone calls, and each family member, even if once a day is too much, maybe every family member takes maybe a day of the week. Maybe somebody calls them on Monday or somebody calls them Saturday morning, or there's lots of ways that you can work in these check-in calls. And another reason why these check-in calls work really well, especially if you are responsible for helping manage the care of an aging loved one and you're working a full-time job, having scheduled check-in calls will also help you not get interrupted at work. So if you call them in the morning, or you say, "Mom, or dad or whomever, I'll call you, every day at my lunch and make sure that everything's good." Of course, you can call me in an emergency, but if you schedule those check-in calls, oftentimes you won't get those calls. And when they call you and you say, "Mom," in a minute, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're busy." Well, Mom, what do you want? You must have called me at some, well, nothing really important. I mean, they just needed to talk to somebody. So those check-in calls go a long way in because you can control those check-in calls. So if you're checking in with them, chances are, they're going to feel better. They're not going to call you again unless it's an emergency. So you get a little better control over when you're able to call them, rather than just them calling you at random times when maybe it's not an opportune time for them to call. Pets are another thing. So there's a question on whether or not pets is a good idea with our seniors. There's a lot of pros and cons for that. If an aging loved one has a pet, or you get them a pet, you have to keep a close eye on them, because as they decline and are unable to care for themselves, that pet is going to get neglected as well. So if they can't care for themselves, they can't care for the pet. So sometimes what I think might be a good solution is, if they're really a pet lover, maybe see if they would foster this way, that they would have, a pet for a shorter period of time, and there's not that lifelong commitment. And then if something happens to them now, who's going to take the dog, or who's going to take the cats? And that's hard on everybody. So, fostering may be an opportunity if your aging loved one is an animal lover. So this is, here's our notebook. So let's just take a minute just to write down some concerns, or some things that might pertain to your family, whether it's a concern or whether any of those things to help combat the loneliness and isolation may be applicable, and maybe jot down some ideas that, oh yeah, maybe this would be a good thing. Maybe this would be a good thing. So just try and make a note as we go along of what might be specific to your family, or things that you want to remember to think about or talk about with your family later on. So we just went through a lot of ideas for addressing and preventing isolation and loneliness for your aging one. Again, the notebook, this is just a slide to remind you to make sure that you're jotting those down in your workbook. So real quickly, depression, there's different kinds of depression, seasonal depression. There's a depression that lasts a short period of time, long period of time. I'm not going to go into a lot of that. That is, probably more than what you need to know, but just know that there are different kinds of depression, and our elderly, most of the time, the most important thing for you to know about depression is oftentimes our elderly will get it as a result of loneliness and isolation. So some of the things that you might look for in signs and symptoms for depression, just a persistent sad mood. They're withdrawing. Say my mother-in-law, for example, I know she went out and had lunch with the girls once a month. If she just said month, a couple, 2, 3 months in a row, I just don't feel like it. Oh, I just don't want to go. That would be a red flag to me. And so that should be a red flag to you. So like kind of withdrawing from activities, withdrawing from people. You got to remember, as our aging loved ones get older, their circle of influence gets smaller. Their friends and family members, siblings start passing away. So the people that they connected with the most and have with shared experiences, because of they were the same generation, they start to go away, and so they feel their circle is shrinking. Even my husband, he's really challenged now with the loss of his mom. We moved up here because he wanted to be close to his mom, his dad, his grandma. Now they're all gone, and we're the only Dunwalds. We're the only ones here. So he's kind of feeling lost because he feels like he's alone because his family is now all gone from this area. So even for him, he's 67. So even for him, that's been a bit of a challenge for him. And he's really kind of struggling with that. So just pay attention for those kind of things. Being tired all the time, feeling worthless. Oh, I'm no good anymore. I don't have anything to offer. Oh, nobody wants to listen to an old person like me. Eating more, eating less, sleeping more or sleeping less, just irritable, not enjoying, things that they used to enjoy. So, on the opposite side of the coin, if they're sleeping a lot, maybe they're restless, maybe they can't sleep. These all could be signs of symptoms of depression. So anxiety on that other, maybe depending on them, they may experience depression, or they may experience anxiety related to loneliness and isolation. So these are some of the signs and symptoms of anxiety, nervousness, wringing their hands a lot, breathing rapidly, shaking, a lot of stomach, diarrhea, a lot of stomach upset, just, I feel sick to my stomach. I feel sick to my stomach. Or they feel like they're in this constant state of worry or in a state of panic. Those would be some symptoms of anxiety. And again, it becomes a problem when it interferes with their activities of daily living. And so write down in your, if you can, in your workbook, what signs and symptoms are you seeing with any of your aging loved ones? Or what you might anticipate because you know them so well. Oh, I know if mom or dad or grandma, grandpa, or whomever does this, I know that, they're getting into some trouble. So jot down some of those things in your workbook that you can go back and look at later on and saying, yeah, these are the things, or, these are the things that I might need to pay attention to. And also, what might put them at risk. What is their life like right now? Or what am I foreseeing in the near future that could, put them at risk? Okay, so what can I do about that? So make sure that you get this number and that maybe jot this down in your workbook. So the Institute on Aging, I use a lot of resources. They have a lot of great resources for a lot of our presentations that we do. So any aging adult over the age of 60, they actually have a loneliness and isolation hotline, and they actually will have conversations with people. You can actually call and talk to someone. So that's that 888-670 1360. And that is, a loneliness and isolation hotline, so to speak. And so the nationally known friendship line is a program, like I said, by the Institute of the Aging. And also there is an elderly suicide and prevention and for grief related services. And the otherwise, so the two options there would be to call 911, or the suicide hotline is 988. So make sure that you get those numbers jotted down. And now we're going to move into multi-generational living. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that is, and what exactly, is multi-generational living. And then I'm going to ask Joe talk a little bit about, and he's worked a lot with Janet. So I'll have him share a little bit of her story that he has. And I've spoken with her as well. And again, please don't worry. I want to make sure that you get everything that you're supposed to get with this webinar. So I will connect with Janet, we'll record a video, and I will send that out to you in an email so that you have that video as well. So what is multi-generational living? Multi-generational living, that means when more than 2 generations are living in a household together. So for example, I grew up in a multi-generational living situation. My dad's parents always lived with us. Sometimes they lived, upstairs, or later on they lived in the same home with us. But so it was the 3 generations. So it was the grandparents, it were the parents, and it were the children. So that at least 3 generations or more would make it a multi-generational living situation. So, and it's when they're all living in the same household, under the same roof, or, in close proximity to like us. We had like a 2-flat. So we just walked up the stairs and we went right into, grandma and grandpa's house. So, here are some benefits of multi-generational living. Just going to shrink this a little bit so we can get it all. Whoops, I went the wrong way there. Okay, so some of the benefits are shared household responsibilities, cooking, cleaning, laundry, running errands. This is, truly a benefit. If you have kids, and your grandparents are, your parents are still able to, they can help run kids from here and there. If you've got multiple kids, I know when I was, had my kids, I had one in wrestling, one in gymnastics. All the kids, they were in 3 sports. And so I always had 2 kids that had to be in 2 different places at the same time. So that might be a benefit. Help, like I said, helping with the grandkids, enhance security. I mean, less worry. You're going to worry less. You're going to sleep better knowing that your aging, parents or family members are with you. The elderly, a loved one may have a restored sense of purpose. They may feel like they now have purpose, even if it's little tasks around the house or doing something with the grandkids. They feel that they are making a difference, that they're needed. So that's another benefit. Intergenerational learning and bonding, a great time for grandkids and grandparents to learn, hear the stories. I used to love hearing stories from my grandma. And what I love most is I'd go upstairs to my grandma. My grandma loved to bake, and my grandpa loved those chicken pot pies. And so my grandma, of that generation, they went through the Depression. They didn't throw anything out because there was always going to be a use or a purpose. So she always saved those little tins from the chicken pot pies. And so when I'd go upstairs and say, "Oh, Grandma, what are you doing?" And she'd be making a pie. Well, I could make my own pie with those little tins from the chicken pot pies. And I have just tremendous amount of fond memories of my grandparents, them living upstairs. So lots of things that with the kids and the grandparents there. So shared financial responsibilities, if the aging adult is able, a lot of times they can help with the household expenses. Companionship and avoiding isolation, that's a big one. And then, allowing for an easier care as the aging adult gets older. So let's take a look at what some of the concerns are, to have a harmonious living arrangement when you're having all these people in the home. So again, here's your workbook icon. So, kind of make a note of anything that we talked about so far that's resonated with you, any of the benefits, what would pertain to you, what would be a benefit for you right now to have an aging, parent or grandparent living with you. So jot some of those things down. All right, some of the challenges, negotiating personal space. Does mom and dad like to watch this, or what time do they go to bed? Is that going to interrupt, what meal time? So a lot of those things will come into consideration because everybody has different rhythms. Maybe the family goes to bed at 10, maybe mom and dad go to bed at 9. Is the kids just going to disrupt, grandma and grandpa? So these are some things to think about. Caregiving responsibilities. Are they coming to live with you because you're going to have to be providing care? How is that going to disrupt the family? And what are the considerations with that? financial considerations. Maybe one of the reasons why you're taking in an aging loved one is maybe they don't have the financial means to be able to sustain living on their own. And so you're going to be, having extra people or an extra person in your house. So that might create an additional financial responsibility for you. Again, and then just different lifestyles and routines, even down to dinner, who's going to cook what do you like to eat? Does mom and dad or grandma and grandpa like the same kind of foods that we eat, or they do used to eating something else? Maybe the family, maybe you're vegan, but maybe grandma and grandpa aren't, or vice versa, or whatever. Or, they're a diabetic, maybe they need special food, and the kids have snacks and goodies around, and how are you going to keep, grandma or grandpa out of that? So lots of things to consider. And when you're working, can they be left alone? Like we talked before, are you still going to be, even if they're in the same household and you're working, what are you going to do with mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, when you're at work? So these are some of the challenges. So what are your thoughts, and here's your workbook icon. So what are your thoughts on the financial and personal dynamics of multi-generational living? How might your family navigate these challenges or other challenges, and what might be the benefits? So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this over to Joe Kress. And he is, like I said, owner and broker of Kress Real Estate Solutions. And I'd like Joe to talk about, Janet's experience, what he knows, and also kind of the logistics, when he's looking at, multi-generational living, what from choosing a house, or what kind of things, do you need to consider? So, Joe, take it away. I'm going to go
Hey,
ahead. Go ahead.
thanks for having us, in good evening to everyone that's on here tonight. I really appreciate Pam calling us on, and Janet is a client of ours and has been, and it's unfortunate that she's not with us tonight. I just want to share with everybody, what our mission statement is. It's just Crest Real Estate Solutions. I'll just tell you, and it says, we empower coworkers and clients to foster collaborative thinking, which drives marketplace creation and innovation. We believe the company should act as a we to achieve goals while operating timely and efficiently. Hang on just one second.
Just going to leave my screen up here while Joe is sharing information here.
Sorry about that.
It's
I
okay.
had a little one who's not cooperating the most efficiently here this evening.
I know
Uh,
Joe is a solo parent tonight, so
um, but really, it comes down to a we. So, when we meet with somebody, such as Janet, or another person who may be a senior position, we look at it from a we standpoint. It's not just me or them, or it's what do they want to do. And I think one of the biggest things for somebody, that comes into play, we look at timelines. We look at situations of what is it that they want to do, what is it that they want to achieve. I would just speak from the aspect of somebody like Janet. Janet was moving to being multi-generational. Okay. And she also had been multi-generational while she took care of her aging parents and had her daughter and grandson living with her at one point. So when you look at these things, for Janet, what was paramount was not only her downsizing and everything that she was doing, because she was transitioning to live multi-generational, but also understanding where she came from, but then also having ready for her to move into, and that was paramount for her. And then also getting everything that comes into getting the house ready and on the market, and everything that we can do that way. But a big one could be, where are you going, right? Where is it you're going to be going to, and what is it that you're going to be doing?
what I did, Joe, is I just stopped sharing that screen while you were talking about what you want, and then I can go back to there. So,
Oh, not
so
a
that good
problem.
for you.
I can keep going. I think what's also really important is, I would also just share from the aspect of a, another previous client that we worked with. Um, you know, they said, "Oh, sure, you're going to sell my house, right? You're going to do this," and I was like, "Okay, we are, and we will." And then when the time came that we had the offer, it was like, "Oh my gosh, you sold my house. You actually did it. This actually happened." Like they weren't ready for that. So our job is to help walk everybody through that process and make sure that they're ready with everything that they are doing, and in preparing them for the next steps where they got. But also, it's a reflection. I think I had a client who wanted to look out this one particular window every day where they sat at home, and it was a rural property and everything like that. So to them, like you would, what I did is I took a picture of the window looking out to where they were looking at, as one of their, as a thank you and one of the things to say goodbye. And as I had all the pictures of the home and everything we did, is to say it was a to new beginnings. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, you have my chair, you have my table, and you have the window." Like everything that they would look at as they looked out. They were transitioning into some assisted living, and they were having a difficulty, and they were not going to be able to have that anymore. But they at least had to be able. They were able to take with them that memory, and to them that was very important, and they were very receptive to the fact that we thought of that and made that happen for them.
So Joe, have in those situation, and I know Janet, she started multi-generational because she took care of her parents, had her daughter and her, and her grandson with her, and then she lived on her own, and now she's selling her home to move in with her daughter and son-in-law and grandson. So she, and I know when you see the recording with Janet, she absolutely loved it. She is a big fan of multi-generational living. She loved every minute of it. She's lived most of her adult life as multi-generational. And you're going to say something, Joe?
No, I'm listening.
Okay.
I was just going to
Um,
say that she really is, and I mean, like, it was exciting to listen to her, to think of, to her, what had been the thought of an obstacle, where she felt like she was a burden on her kids because they had to help maintain the yard. They had to come over, they had to help with these different things. That, they were already talking about what everybody was having for dinner or back and forth or doing different things or whatnot already. She was even talking about the like extracurricular schedule of what her grandson has, and how she was gonna go to those things, right? I mean, like the foresight to be like, I'm gonna be there, and then I'm gonna go do these things, like everything, looking forward to it, honestly, it's hitting on everything that Pam has talked about earlier tonight, and it's coming back, but it's a little bit of a sense of purpose, and her son-in-law was like, so you mean like when I come home, like dinner will already be done for me, you know? I don't know if that's gonna, probably for like the first month, right? Like after a while, like it's probably gonna wear a little thin. But in time. But but like, that I think there's a major facet to that and what they can do. I think another one might be you think of Jerry Stiller and King of Queens. That's a little bit different where he's basement arty, lives in the basement. That's a little bit of a different thought process there. But in regards to with everything that, Janet really had already understood what multi-generational housing was and was looking forward to that process. Because I think I don't want to speak for her and say it was a fact of loneliness, but I will say that the thing that's really ringing through to me tonight is this idea of sense of purpose. She kept saying to me, my family is my everything, and I want to be able to watch and see my life work through my family. And so I think that's a big one.
Yeah, and I didn't even think of that. And Joe, I'm glad you brought that up because that's another thing. Maybe they're still able to take care of themselves, but like in Janet's case, she's got her own home. She's got the yard work, she's got snow removal, she's got repairs, she's got all those things that she has to manage and get taken care of on her own. And
Yeah.
so she can help, and she can be of great help to her son-in-law, daughter, and her grandson, and not have to worry about them coming over and having to do all those things for her. So it made her feel better not having to have to ask them to pitch in to help support her, and she can now actually support them. So Joe, from a real estate perspective, do you see, I mean, when people go into these situations, do you ever see them buying a house together or both of them on the mortgage, or is it usually like the adult children that have that. I mean, have you ever seen any financial transactions or anything that anybody would need to think about in that or
Yeah, I would say I've seen the full array. I've seen it where, mom and dad downsize and things are, become into a trust that go to family. And the property is kept, that way. I've seen it where things are set up and then they say, mom and dad say, we're gonna be here until the day we die. We're gonna age in place, and at that point, they know everything that's gonna go to their kids. I would say I've also seen it where mom and dad say, we're selling everything lock, stock, and barrel, and we're moving into an apartment complex because we don't want anybody to have to deal with that. I've seen it where, you know, they move where they sell and they move in and they want to take over and pay off what would be in essence the mortgage of the house that the other family members have, or do something as a way of them saying they want to distribute their wealth.
Mhm.
And there's an array of things. I've seen it where, they move into one and they remodel part of the house, right? Or, they put the addition onto a part of a house, and family understands that, okay, well, so and so got their house remodeled and they added, 800 square feet, but now they have mom and and dad or one of the family members living with them, right? Like that's a big thing that way. I would say that to me, from a real estate perspective, what we work to help do, each and every situation is different, and we work to always peel back the layers of the onion and what can work to help people. I'll say that I had a client that I was selling the house across the street. This is kind of interesting. I pull in, I'm selling the house across the street. The house across the street had been for sale. It went under contract right away. I pull up, it's the end of October, in the morning, and someone's out in their yard blowing leaves. And I say, "Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you." And they're blowing the leaves, and I'm talking to her. She goes, "Hey, are you the realtor?" I said, "Yeah, I'm the realtor." And of course, never want to forgive him, get a moment to not give him your card, right? So I give them my card and do everything that way. And she goes, "Okay, well, if I ever want to call you, I will." And I didn't think anything of it. And lo and behold, the next spring they called me, and I said, "Okay, hey, you all right? Tell me about your house, you ready to decide?" And then so they give me and I look up, and they'd only owned their house for like 2 or 3 years. And I would have thought that these people may have been in their house for 35, 40 years. They just look like, hey, this is great. They lays their house on the street and everything that way. Well, come to find out, they had sold their house prior, and they moved into some apartment complexes that were going to be senior housing, and they felt like they made the move too early.
Mhm.
They moved and it just didn't work out for them, and they were like, we got to get out of here. And so they moved out. They went and bought another house, and then they were there for about 3, 4 years. And then they had some health ailments and a few things come up, and they said, it's just time for us to make a transition. And they were making a transition to maybe more of a townhouse aspect with outdoor access, things that
Mhm.
still kept them busy, allowed them to do some yard work, allowed them to do some things, but wasn't fully into maybe apartment style living where they were used to having their own single family home. And that's worked out very well from what I know.
Last question I wanted to ask Joe is I mean, what has been the biggest challenge? I mean, if you see in with multi-generational living, I mean, when they're looking at space, I mean, do they ever have to think about, okay, well, where are they going to have their own space or how, I mean, what are they, looking or what's a good idea when you're looking for a house? What would be some suggestions in the type of house to look for that maybe might work well for multi-generational living? Oh, you're on mute, Joe.
Yeah, I would say a couple things to this. I've had people take they were selling their house. Now these people had a 5,200 square foot home, so a very large home. And I said, "So what's got you selling your house?" And it was the week after Easter. And he said, "Well, 2 weeks ago, I told my wife that pack a bag and we're headed downstairs." And pack a bag, and he goes, "Where are we going?" He goes, "Downstairs." They hadn't been down there since Christmas when the kids were coming home, and the kids were coming home for Easter again. That like from that aspect. Okay, so but a lot of people may think to themselves, "I don't want to infringe." on my other family member's space in their home. And
Mhm.
I think if you're going to do multi-generational living, it's multi-generational, but it's still living together. Like there has to be the aspect of like you're not upsetting the rhythm. Like you are living together, you are understanding things that go on. But also everybody being aware that we got to have a little bit of our own space, right? And do some things. So I mean, I think what was important for one person that we were just working with recently on a listing that we were wanting to get, we didn't get, but we wanted to have. They had, I would say, most of the elements of like a little kitchenette in one part of the house. They had the microwave or the toaster oven. They had a sink. They had another refrigerator. They had all their stuff there to make things. And they had their own little spot in one part of the house with some bedrooms and a small living area. But then they had the main part of the kitchen in another part of the house where everyone would get. But I think that just goes off individuality, what you want to do. But I think you have to really look at the aspect, and everybody that I've talked to that's so far done it successfully has said, we are living together, and there is some of that bleeding together. Things do bleed over that way.
Gotcha. Well, if anybody has any questions, about multi-generational living, please go ahead and put them in the chat. Joe, if you can just stick around for a couple of minutes, and I'm gonna move into aging into place. But if you've got any questions for Joe, please go ahead and type them into the chat, and we will make sure that we get them answered for you. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna wrap up tonight's webinar with aging in place. Okay. When I saw this picture, I just thought that this was really cute. It's an elderly couple in their home dancing. And I just thought that that was, to me, the epitome of aging in place, is to be able to be in your own home and just cut a rug. So, all right. So what does aging in place mean? You know, when I think about my mother-in-law, when she fell and hit her head and ended up passing, she had been declining for a while, and we had been talking about what were we going to do, because she was living alone, and what are we going to do when she's no longer able to care for herself. And it was hard because she was not leaving her home, so we had come to the conclusion that one of us, it was going to be hard, but it would be a season, and that was okay. But one of us, we'd either have to stay with her overnight. My husband's auto repair shop is right on her property, so he was with her all day long. But either take turns staying at night with her, or both of us staying at night, or we weren't sure how that was going to be, but we knew that that was coming up. So that would be some consideration, if they're aging in place and they don't want to leave. I mean, it's really hard. Like in the hospital, when we find that someone that is being discharged from the hospital really should go to a nursing home, they're not real safe to go home, we can't make them. And a lot of family members get upset with us and they say, well, they've got to go to a nursing home, make them go to a nursing home. Tell the doctor, make them go to a nursing home. If they are of sound mind and the doctor has not deemed them incompetent, we can't make them go anywhere. They essentially have the right to make what we might feel a wrong decision, but they have that right. So we try and support them every way we can to make it safe and to meet their needs. And a lot of times that's as advocates where we come in, what plans, what do we have to put together to make them safe at home? And then what do we agree on? What's the plan B? At what point do we say, okay, this is now we got to try and move them into plan B? But it takes a lot of work to want to live out, your golden years as aging in place, especially if you have, chronic illness. But people want to, I mean, like my husband and I, we have a home here, and we call it our forever home, and it's got wheelchair accessible, the rooms, everything we need is all on the main level. But that doesn't mean that something might happen, that we may not be able to stay here. So these are a lot of considerations as we get started. But they understand that um this is where they want to be, and giving up their home. We have to remember our aging loved ones. Every time we every time they lose a bit of independence, they're losing a piece of themselves, and they have to tell themselves that they are less of what they were 10 years ago. So as we really have to be considerate and have a little empathy with them when they dig in and don't want to give up that independence, because they know what's coming. They know that that's the beginning of the end. And so we have to be really compassionate with them and try and have conversations with them and let them participate, and talk to them about safety and what happens if you fall and we're not here. I mean, have them participate and come to some of their own rational conclusions, rather than you say, you know what, I'm taking the car keys away today. Well, that's again another notch in the belt that they're losing their independence, and they're less of the person that they were 10 years ago. So again, the proper, I shouldn't say proper, every family is different, but a suggestion might be is, we love you, we care about you, we don't want you to be driving the car and then get lost and not be able to find your way home. We don't want you to maybe have if you have a health challenge, we don't want you to have a stroke or a heart attack. We don't want you to hurt yourself. Or how would you feel if you got into an accident and injured someone else? Help them to look at the safety issues, because if you argue with them and say, I'm taking away the keys, you can't drive anymore, they're going to dig in and they're going to fight with you. But if you have these rational conversations about safety, they're more likely, and not always, I'll be honest with you, you might be thinking to yourself, not my mom or not my dad, and I get that. And there's other things that we can do to help to facilitate. But oftentimes, if you have share those safety concerns and let them come to the conclusion, no, you know what, I would not want to get in an accident and hurt someone else. Then they may say, well, how about if I just drive, a couple of blocks here, I can run to the store and and if that's a good place to start. So just, think about, if you think the time is coming, 3, 6, 9 months, a year down the road, start having those conversations now and ask them, I don't want to be the bad guy, mom, dad, and take your keys away. So you tell me when are you going to feel like maybe you need to stop driving? What does that look like for you? And have them, give you some examples of when they might be ready. So just include them. So what are some key things to consider in aging place? And here's your notebook icon. So we're going to run through some things for you to try and consider for your family, what concerns or what considerations you might have if they want to age safely at home. So we're going to run through the list. So again, jot down on your workbook any of these things that might be pertaining to your aging loved one. So accessible home design. So what happens if they need to have a wheelchair? Are they going to be, will it fit? We've been in many homes. I've done over 20 years in home health and hospice, and have been in many homes where the bathrooms, you can't get a wheelchair in there, let alone 2 people in the bathroom. So how accessible is their home to be able to accommodate them if they need to get into the bathroom with a walker or a wheelchair? Or, are they going to be able to step into the tub? And so what kind of support things are they going to need? Handrails, and some of these things may not be need to be added all at once, but you need to, get a plan in place. Okay, what are we going to need to add? Do they have a lot of throw rugs? Is that a fall risk? Do they have carpet? A lot of homes, if you have carpet, you try and push a wheelchair or a walker on carpet, and that's pretty hard. It's very difficult. So if they're going to be aging in their place, what's their support network? Are their neighbors involved? Do their neighbors, do they have a relationship with their neighbors where their neighbors check on them? How far away do you live from them? Do you live, in the same city? Do you live in, 15 minutes away, or do you live? Sorry about that. Or do you live 2,000 miles away? Like one of our clients, he lives in Washington State, and his parents live in Madison. So he is long distance. And so where do you live in comparison? So what is their support network? So he hired us to help manage and keep an eye on their health issues, so that he feels they're getting good care while he's living so far away? Do they have personal cares? Are we going to need to bring in a caregiver to help with them? Are you working? Do they need to have some companionship, while you're at work? What are their emotional needs? And I see that I made a mistake here and I didn't finish my slide. So I do apologize. So I don't know what that language is or what those words mean. So I apologize for that. So shame on me. I'm sorry about that. So, so when we say their emotional needs, just like what we spent the time talking about, loneliness and isolation, depression and anxiety, how are we going to be meeting those emotional needs for them? We talked about the home safety modifications, and there's another typo there. I apologize for that. I'm sorry. It's been a rough week. So please allow me some grace. I will fix those. But technology, doorbell cameras, life alert, pendants, or a watch, that are connected to, when they push a button, it'll go to, the first, second, and third responders. And if they don't answer, then it goes to 911. What kind of things can we put into place to help keep them safe for as long as possible to try and give them their wish of wanting to age in place? There's phone apps. There's like medication. There's medication reminders. There's medication dispenser machines. One of my favorites is called Hero. It's just HERO. And it dispenses, you have to fill it. So you fill it with the medications, and you can get like a 1 or 2 week system. You fill it up, but then it's dispenses, the door opens, an alarm goes off, reminds them to take it. And then if for some reason it's not taken and that door doesn't get closed, you get on your app that goes with it, you get a notification saying that they did not take their medications. So these, again, are a lot of things that we can help you with to put plans in place, but there's a lot of technology now that can help. There's wandering devices. There's, if there's a little dementia involved, I mean, there's other things that we can do, like the wander guards, things like that, that we can actually do in the home. What about legal and financial plans in place? Oh, and I missed this. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So legal and financial plans in place. So, are there advanced directives in place? Who is their power of attorney? Who is going to be their financial power of attorney if something happens? Who's in charge? So we want to make sure, do they want to put their home in a trust? We want to make sure that they meet with the estate planning attorney. We want to make sure that they have met with the financial planner to see, number one, can they afford to live at home? Can they afford to live and age in place? And if they're going to need extra care, is it going to be less expensive to age in place, or is it going to be less expensive maybe to go to an assisted living where they're not paying all this money out of pocket to have private caregivers in the home? So these are a lot of things to consider, weighing the costs between aging in place and, aging in some kind of senior community or senior care environment, whether it's a senior independent apartment or in assisted living. And here's where I'll, kind of put a shout out. There are a lot of communities out there that have senior apartments, assisted living, and then nursing homes all on the same campus. So it's a really easy transition because it's the same company, it's the same people. So, that's something to consider. Maybe you want to jot that down if that's appropriate in your workbook, that if that might be an option for your aging loved one to, to give them that independence, knowing that if they need to change, you have everything right there. So key points to discuss, what are the considerations for making your home senior friendly? So, if you want to jot this down in your notebook. So, why is aging in place becoming so popular? I had a conversation with a mortgage lender, and it's a friend of both Joe and mine. And, he was talking about a lot of people that he sees from his perspective want to age in place because their house is paid for. They don't owe anything. So why would they go to assisted living or go, somewhere else where they're going to have to, kick up, try and find the money to pay for that when their home is already paid for? And so maybe they don't have a lot of money. They're relying on Social Security. Well, their house is paid for. They can pay their monthly bills and have a little, they can live that way. But if they were going to do that, they were going to have to sell their home to be able to afford to go someplace like that. And then maybe they wouldn't have that house to give to the kids. And so, that's one of the reasons why, they may want to age in place. Again, they may want to age in place because they don't want to go to another type of senior living. They've seen, what's gone on through the pandemic, you know, um, and so how does technology play a role? We talked a little bit about that because there are so many things that we could do through technology to help keep them safer at home, especially if they're willing to participate and use that technology. And like the Lifeline and our apps or our medication dispensers. Sometimes seniors are technology divergent. So that might be a challenge for them living at home if they're opposed to, having a cell phone or having some of these things. So what community resources are available for seniors to choose to age in place? Again, do they have transportation? How are they going to get, if they're living alone and they're living at home and they're aging in place, how are they going to get to the doctor? Who's going to take them if they're not driving and you don't live close by or you're working full time? Maybe they need to give up scheduling their appointments. And that's what I did for my mother-in-law is I made all of her appointments because then I could make it on days and times that were best for me because I could take her then. So, and you may want to consider that. So there's a lot of things. And my big thing is you must have a plan B. Like I said, we want to be very compassionate with them and wanting to age in place and say, yes, we're going to give it a good college try. But what is the plan B if and when? And not saying that it will happen, but that it may work and you won't be safe at home. What is that plan B going to be? Is it going to be moving in with you? Is it going to be maybe going to assisted living? Or if, a dementia is progressing and maybe they have to go to a nursing home to memory care, but make sure that there is a plan B that they have agreed to. And, and you say, there's give and take. Okay, mom and dad. Yeah, I understand you don't want to move from your house. We want to keep you safe in your home. That's fine. We're going to do it as long as possibly we can. We have lots of ideas to get supportive services in here. We know how to build a care team. We can do all this stuff. But if we get to the point that you can't, what would you be willing to do? What would be okay with you? And so let them participate in those choices. So is your home or your aging loved one's home ready for aging in place? And again, if it's not, how costly are the modifications going to be? And that's another thing to consider. If they're going to stay in their home, maybe they need to sell that home and downsize to a smaller home if they want to age in place, if they're still living in the home that they raised their kids in. And then you have an opportunity for them to age in place, but yet maybe move into a smaller home that would be, age, friendly, that can accommodate walkers, wheelchairs, or things like that. So here's your notebook icon. And so in looking at your situation, what would need to be done in your parents' home or your grandparents' home to make it safe for them to age in place? Or would it be, if you're going to age in place, you're going to have to move? So what are some considerations that you can think of? So jot down a couple of notes that you might have to think about in order to make their home or transition into another home that would allow them to age in place. And again, that, like I said before, that plan B, have that in place, but that might be either moving with you or another senior living opportunity. So recap of the webinar. And so I want to wrap this up. We've been on for quite a while, and I do appreciate your patience and your tolerance with some of my challenges and mistakes tonight. So we will get that all taken care of for you. We are recording this, so you will get this webinar recording so you can go back if you missed or want to see a section of it again. We are recording this, and I will send you the recording. And then as soon as I can get that video with Janet, I will send you that as well. And I will keep you posted on the progress of that as well. So we've talked about mental health concerns. We've talked about multi-generational living, and we've talked about aging in place. And so just think about what has impacted you, with this webinar. What things do you need to sort out? What things do you need to think about? So make sure that you're jotting that down in your workbook. And I just want to say that for our services, as an advocate, I did have one thing that I wanted to offer. We're going to end this webinar. I'm not going to, I don't want to turn this into anything more than the information I gave you, but we are offering one special that if you decide that within the next 24 hours, you would want to book a free 30-minute consultation with us, just to discuss your particular situation. If you're willing to do that, what we would want to do is we would share with you our senior care summit we put together, and Joe is gracious enough to do one of the videos for us. We have 34 videos that we've put together for senior care, and we called it our Senior Care Summit 2024. It's divided into 5 different areas of need, so to speak. We've got a lot of doctors, a lot of healthcare professionals talking about the medical side of things. And then we have a lot of other speakers talking about the supportive side of things, the ancillary services and all the support that someone would need to help caring for an aging parent. So what you can expect with that 30-minute consultation is just, and I'm just going to skip to what you would, we talked about a lot of examples, and this is our contact information, but in our email, there's the link. In all our emails that you've gotten is the link to go ahead and book a 30-minute consultation. And what you get in that 30-minute consultation is we listen to your story. You tell us exactly what your situation is. And then we determine what those needs are. After talking with you, we get a really good idea of what the situation is and what the needs might be. We ask you, are you a do-it-yourself person? Do you like to do things with a little help? Or are you looking for someone to take on a task and do it all for you? So once we determine, where you fit in, a lot of people like to take charge and do that. Other people want something taken off their plate. We work with you whatever way that you want. And then we give you at least 2 or 3 tangible action items that you can take action on right away in your situation. So we always make sure during that free consultation call that you walk away with something that you can take action on right away. And then it's up to you, whether or not you want to do, if you are completely a do-it-yourselfer and you don't want to use our services, we will do our best to point you at our free resources and some of the things that can help you, to meet you where you are at. So with that being said, I am going to we have our resources for some of the information that we shared. And I just want to say thank you for hanging with us during the presentation. And again, if you have any questions, please, put them in the chat. Otherwise, feel free to reply to our email with your workbook, or again, you will be getting an email with the recording of this video by the end of this week. And so again, just reply to the email and let us know if you have any questions. And in those emails is the link to go ahead and schedule that. And if you do schedule that in, the next day or two, then we will be happy to give you access on our hub. It's a learning center. It's our hub where our clients have access to all of our tools and our information. And that's where we house our Senior Care Summit. And we would give you access to those videos. So Joe, anything you'd like to say in wrapping up as we close?
I don't have much to add. I just want to thank everybody for their time. And Pam graciously extended a free 30-minute consultation if anybody wants that. I would do that on behalf of my brokers in our team. If there's anybody that's looking at transitional housing or things of that nature, we would offer a meet and greet with a free comparative market analysis on their home to help them determine what their value would be and what a snapshot might be if they're moving forward, if they're looking at making a change in their housing where they may have to sell their home or do something different. We would for sure offer that. Outside of that, I thank everyone for their time tonight and being on here. And this is something that is something that's very paramount that everybody has to deal with. And it's like Pam said, it's not if, it's when. And to be proactive and work to head it off is going to be is a great thing.
All right, well, thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us tonight. I want to thank everyone that was here, and thank you so much, and just look forward to the emails. Make sure you check your spam or your junk mail in case something goes in there. I don't want you to lose anything. So if you don't hear from me by the end of the week, please look there, because I'll be reaching out and I would hate you to miss anything. So that's why I wanted to give you that workbook. If you missed the workbook in an email, please go ahead and download that from the chat. You'll only have until May 5th to download that workbook, and then that'll go away. But once you download it, you can save it to your computer or wherever you're saving it to, and you'll have that for life. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.